Hey, everybody, it's Lynn Meyer, the HRT coach, which stands for Healing, Restoration, and Transformation. Today is Men Cry in a Car, episode 4, and we are in for a treat. We have Mr. Norman Liverpool himself. He is a life coach. He is a dynamic speaker. He is a person that is ready to set this stage on fire. Y'all get ready. This conversation, this episode, whatever you want to call it, this space we're going to be in is getting ready to just be everything, all the things and everything. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest for the day, Mr. Norman Liverpool.
Hello,
Hey,
hello. Hey,
how is it going?
it is good, just in this good 114-degree weather.
Oh God, yes. See, and I was complaining about it being I think today it's 99.
It was
So
120 yesterday.
I'm not going to complain.
No,
I'm not going to
no.
complain, but I definitely I want to say thank you so very much for having a conversation with me, for agreeing to being on this platform, this podcast, because it appeared as if you knew instantly what I wanted to do for men.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
thank you for that. I thank you for seeing the vision, what I want to create, and how you are playing a part in this. So please tell the people who you are.
Well, my name is Norman Liverpool IV. I am the author of Over the Top Living, Walking in Next Level Confidence Every Damn Day. I am known as the Confident Lifestyle Coach. And essentially, what I do is I connect my clients to their authentic superpower, which is that unicorn mentality, that uniqueness, that thing that's you. And I'm just very, very happy to be here with you today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it because we were connected by, let's give her a shout out. Who connected
Yes,
us? Who
Miss
connected us?
Chandra Brooks from the
Yes, Miss
Powerhouse
Chandra
Women.
Brooks. And we appreciate you so very much. And if there's any questions and comments for those that come on, ask the questions. We're here to talk about it. And that's what we're going to do. It's a very organic conversation. All right. So let's just jump into it.
Okay.
Let me ask you this way. Why do you feel like men cry in the car?
Well, it has a lot to do with how many of us are taught to be perceived, to always put that symbol of strength, that symbol of being the protector, of being the provider. And a lot of times in those spaces, especially within the Black community, there's no room for the emotion. There's no room for kind of that vulnerability. And so I think that we get creative and we figure out where in our day, where in our life, where in our space can we just let the guard down and just be.
Yeah. And I think about those spaces that a lot of times there's not many. I would think there's not many. Um,
No.
in your experience, how many have you identified so far?
um, I definitely have created a safe space within me and a very close group of friends and family that we kind of allow for that to take place. But
Mhm.
on a normal day to day, it's almost non existent.
Mm,
Even I'll tell you, yesterday, I had a day
mhm,
yesterday, and it was just like there's nowhere to escape to because
mhm.
just because we've got whatever we've got going on,
Yeah,
life is not stopping. There's still so many different things that need to be done. And you find a way to kind of push through it almost on like this autopilot type setting,
yeah,
but then you end up doing yourself a disservice because you're not really dealing with that thing or the things, and it creates a space for resentment, and a toxicity as well.
definitely agree. So let me ask you this, and I want you to get as comfortable as you can or as you would like to be. Share a story or share a time when you felt like you could not show emotion. You made it, and because you thought you were going to be judged or not understood or not supported. Are you willing to share that with us today?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
um it goes back to when I was getting ready to come out. And there was no word for who I was, what I was experiencing. I didn't have like a role model or someone to look to in my immediate family or in the media that was like, okay, this is okay. So coming from a unashamedly Black and unapologetically Christian household, there was no room for people like me. And so there was this internal battle of me being who I know myself to be, or knowing that there was discovery to be had versus what um, I was meant to portray. And I remember growing up in those spaces and feeling so alone and feeling so vulnerable because there was no way for me to have an outlet for what I was going through, for what I was feeling. And I spent many times crying. There was a one family member in particular, one of my cousins, who was really present in that time for me, but only as far as she could go with her faith. And so it really left me feeling alone. It really left me feeling insignificant, unworthy. It left me feeling like something was wrong with me. And it was not until I decided to go all in on who Norman was that I was able to kind of not care anymore about what other people said or did about the way that I was living my life.
Yeah. And so that right there, you made a conscious decision to show up for yourself. Do you think
Yeah,
that's what's happening with men? You think they're not showing up for themselves, or like, what do you think is happening for them not to express these emotions? I understand you gave me a little bit of an explanation, but do you think that's part of it?
I do. I do think it's part of it. I think that a lot of men are raised to, again, not show that emotion. When you fall as a child, get up, man up. That's the thing, man up. And it's immediately goes into, if you don't do this, you're not a man.
Hmm.
And even exploring different relationships that I have with like my dad and uncles and things like that, it's very strange that as I see them getting older, they're more in tune with that and they're more apt to discuss it because they've been suppressing it for so long. And I
Hmm.
think that what
Hmm.
happens is, as we move forward in life, we create the space to do that, to be
Hmm.
that. I think that we're on autopilot for so many years that when the moment comes that we actually take a break and pause, it's like, whoa,
Hmm.
there's so much to unpack there.
Yeah. So okay, and I heard all of that. What I do want to talk about when you just said the part where there is um, things being suppressed. What is going on in the male perspective, your perspective? What's going on when you suppress your feelings? What's happening?
So for me, and this is again speaking for Norman personally,
Hmm.
um, I don't really enjoy confrontation. And that includes confrontation with self, right? I think a lot of times we think of confrontation as, oh, a one-on-one with someone else, but a lot of it starts with us being able to confront ourselves. And so for me, it's a thing that if you kind of sweep it under the rug, it doesn't exist until it does. And I would imagine that that would be true for other men as well. I look at some of the other men that are in my life, they didn't have time to do that, excuse me, or they didn't create the time. They're working 2 and 3 jobs, they're supporting a family, they're trying to be active in community, they're trying to do all of the things to set their families up, set themselves up, and we kind of ignore ourselves. And I think a lot of it has to do with kind of our perception on different things in society. So, for example, like self care, there's been a huge push on self care,
Hmm.
specifically since 2020, since the onset of the pandemic. And
Hmm.
I know a lot of men thought that, oh, self care, that's for women, or self care, that's for another group. Whereas sometimes self care is just taking 5 minutes to breathe. And I think that we're coming from this culture of hustle, hustle, hustle.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
we got to do this, we got to do that. Don't stop, don't stop. That it does not create the space for us to say, you know what, this is what I'm feeling, or to confront or address situations that might be going on.
Mhm. Mhm. So I'll just share a little bit about my husband. He's gonna be a guest maybe in August. But there has been a time where he actually told me that he never cried in front of anybody. I was the only person that he could cry in front of. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever experienced that? And y'all know it's live. My children are here. Everybody understands that. We're not going to even cut that out. But has there been a time where you feel like you couldn't express yourself, or you wanted to cry, or just share your emotions and you could not do that?
You know, it there has been, but it's been a while, because I choose to connect myself with people that I can be vulnerable with. I choose to connect myself with people that I can be real with, and so I do remember a time where I would feel like I had to, hold it in and suck it up, and it would felt like everything within me was trying to like hold it together. Um, and I think that that's true for a lot of men. You know, I look at one of the biggest, strongest men that I could think of, which was my Uncle Will. I
Mm.
don't think I've ever seen him cry. You know, I
What is
look at my
that?
dad and I could probably count on one hand how many times that I've seen him cry. My uncles, and it's the same thing, and it's so bizarre that to put that in perspective now talking to you, because I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it outside of maybe a funeral, or like a death situation or something like that, but I've never seen that onset of emotion. But having conversations like this, and
Mhm.
having people like me and people like you enter
Mhm.
situations, it in a way gives permission
Yes.
to be, and whatever that is in the moment. If you need to cry, cry. And I
Mhm.
think that, we're, even from when we're talking about children, we do
Mhm.
this thing where we're like, stop that crying.
Yeah.
And I feel like even for me as a parent, like I had to adjust my expectation, because I'm like, oh my gosh, am I repeating this same cycle? And so I think that it needs to come from a place of understanding, but I
Yes.
think that we need to give ourselves the permission to feel. And I think
Mhm.
that is one of
Mhm.
the major things that's missing.
Yeah, I agree. There's a question over here on Facebook, but I'm gonna come back to that. I just want to say something to that. Absolutely, giving ourselves permission to cry, to share, to feel, to think, all those things, right? And it does go back to parenting, how we were parented. Like
Mhm.
you and I talked about it. Gen X and millennial doesn't matter. I think we still grew up the same way. Don't cry, this and that. So I have girls and I have boys. I tell both of them, go ahead and cry. Think about what's going on, understand your feeling, and then share that with mommy. Because when I first became a parent, I did repeat those things. Don't cry. What are you crying for? That's not. And I was like, well, hold on. I remember when I was a child and my parents told me not to cry. And I felt like what I was crying about was extremely valid. So
Mhm.
then I
Mhm.
changed it and I said, okay, so cry, but tell mommy what's going on. And then we look at it like we can be sad, we can have these feelings, we can still cry, but how long are we going to cry? Is that something
Mhm.
that is really important right now, but it's not going to matter later? So that's how we have these conversations now. And then
Mhm.
going into this Facebook, it says, I feel that majority men feel that they are loved conditionally. They are only loved by what they can provide.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. It's true. It's
It
true.
is. I
And
absolutely go ahead. Go ahead,
and
Nolan.
I was gonna say, and it's sad. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just sitting here, and it almost makes me emotional thinking about it, because
Mhm.
I'm calling to memory just my dad, and how much time was lost because he could not do or be in the moment. Not saying he wasn't, but my imagination, imagining that there could have been other things that he wanted to do, but he couldn't, or for any man. how much time are we willing to waste on not healing? How much time are we willing to waste on being a and and I say this cautiously, but being a fraudulent version of ourselves. Anytime that we can't be 100% real, we're being fake. And so how much time are we willing to give away to that? And it how it puts things in perspective for me, even knowing the things that I know, living the way that I live,
Mm-hmm.
how much time am I willing to waste?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I understand exactly where you're coming from because being fraudulent is what I did best.
Yeah.
I
It's easier. It's
learned how to
easier.
pretend. Yeah, that's easy. I learned how to pretend when I was a baby, because abuse in my life started when I was like 1.5. So all that time I learned how to pretend and like everything is good, everything is okay. And I was just torn up inside. And I can only imagine me being a female because it is accepted for girls to cry. And if I felt that way, just imagine like how you guys feel. Also, with that, hold on for just a second. It says, going back, it says they only love by what they can provide. Also, there was a comment that says, so they would never find a safe place if it's provisional. What are your thoughts on that?
It is true because I've been in relationships just like what that viewer is describing, whereas I was only viewed as worthy if if I do that, then. And so it gives you a false sense of security. And like the
Mhm.
viewer said, it's conditional. So then when those things pivot or change, now those very things that we opened up about, the very things that we were vulnerable about, now are weaponized
Mm.
against us. And so what that does is it puts uh, 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 it puts a block on trust, because once that happens, it's like, okay, that's happened before. I can't trust that it's not going to happen again. And so
Mm.
we block out any possibility of having that level of vulnerability with another person again.
Oh my God. Now that, oh my God, I think I'm gonna cry. I think I'm gonna cry. Okay. Woo! Because I think again, how many men in my life that I absolutely love that don't feel safe. They don't feel like they can trust anybody because it was weaponized when they tried to share before.
Mhm. Because we're
Oh
not
my
willing, sometimes that we're not willing to really hear what the other person is saying. It's almost like we're just listening to gather enough information to be able to use that against the person again. And that is why we're even here having this conversation today, because it's something that has to be illuminated. It's something that has to be elevated so that we can really shift this, because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are leading in, this next generation. Millennials like me, we're reaching that age where we're having kids, our parents are getting older, we're shifting into that next phase. And
God.
so we have got to do it now so that it's not repeated with our kids, our grandkids, nieces and nephews.
I totally agree. So it was just like what you and I had talked about when we had the conversation, how we wanted people to show up for us, but we first had to show up for ourselves. And then we
Hmm.
we were able to create those support systems and those people that we could trust and that we could be vulnerable and transparent with, because all the fraudulent things or all the pretending we were doing before was only like, and I'll say this for myself, was only like killing me, damaging me, eating me up inside, destroying me. That's how
Hmm.
I felt.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as you said, we have to now do something totally different because of these generational patterns and things that were passed down, how we should be raised, how we should present, how, like, it's like, but if that doesn't work for me, how am I being my most authentic? And that's
We
why I feel like, you know, and that's why I feel like this platform, this podcast is so important because there's so many men that want to be authentic, but don't know where, don't know how, don't know who they can talk to. And the reason why I wanted you to come on is because you would give a different perspective. You know, when I put the post out there, hey, I'm looking for people that can help me in this type of community, the LGBTQI a community, because I didn't personally know anyone. And I thank you so much for coming on, because the perspective of yours and other men is so important. I didn't want to just have all generational men. I didn't want to do that, because that wasn't going to reach the masses, if you understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So with
Yeah.
that, this is still an opportunity to learn or do something different, because when we think about it, and I'm gonna say this and then I'll let you speak. When we think about how we were raised and what is true and what should not happen, definitely when it comes to the gay community, that's one of the things. It was like, you dare not do that. And if you are a part of that community, or identify, or even close to, or even affiliated, I hope none of these words are offensive, because that's not my intent.
Mhm.
um then you really want to close and shut your feelings down. I know I said a lot, so what do you want to say about that?
No, and I totally agree. And it's almost living in that type of environment gave me permission to live a double life. And what I didn't realize is how many people I was hurting in that process, because I was one Norman over here, the Norman that went to church, the Norman who was Reverend's grandson, the Norman who worked in the soup kitchens and the after school programs and did all of that. But then there was this other Norman that was behind these layers. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s, and even I would dare to say going into my late 20s, early 30s, that I really began to take note of who I am in its entirety. I think that we get so comfortable in what we've been doing. And in order for this type of process to truly work, we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We have to begin to get comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations, uncomfortable dialogues. And it starts with self. It has to start with the uncomfortable conversations that we don't want to have with ourselves. Because if we don't have those conversations, we're never going to unlock our true potential and live authentically and confidently as we were designed to do.
Absolutely. So let me share just a little bit of story. I understand this is men crying in the car. The story is going to be relevant to this topic. The topic of, if you guys haven't seen, is embrace yourself. And from all of that, I felt like at one point in my life I did not embrace myself, because being abused led me to different things, promiscuity. But when that happened, it was promiscuity with men and women. And it was like, oh my God, how are you able to do that? And this was family, friends, and loved ones, and definitely um church folk, Christians. I'm a Christian too, but how I was treated, I felt like I couldn't be authentic. So I think
Mhm.
about like my situation and what happened with me, and then how it is looked at being in, again, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse to anyone, but I'm really trying to bring this home. When there's something going on in your life that maybe people think you chose to be, or whatever, or that's something that you're doing, you don't feel safe, because who can you talk to if you are being ridiculed, thrown out, ostracized, all these things? How was I supposed to feel safe in those spaces? Like, how was I supposed to share my feelings if someone was telling me I'm going to go to hell, if someone's going to tell me God doesn't love me, if some, like, how do I supposed to feel safe in that? And so I guess the reason why I'm sharing it is because, have you ever gone through those type of situations, or did you ever experience that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I grew up in the Black church.
Mhm.
And so it was fire and brimstone. And what I've learned in my journey is that this is stuff that's literally passed down generationally. And even as I've come out and kind of moved into my the authentic version of myself, it's allowed my parents to unlearn and relearn some things. The people around me, it's given them the opportunity to unlearn some of the things. And, my mom was a guest on one of my shows, and she said that was probably one of the hardest things was to, and I'm paraphrasing, but was to dismantle a lot of what she had learned because she knew who I was. And in her words, she knew and recognized God in me. And so there was a period where she and many others in my life had to really dismantle the things that were engraved upon them so that we could move forward in a healthy and loving way.
And I'm glad your mom allowed herself to even be in that space, because I don't know if she thought about like, well, maybe if I do allow permission and grace to my child and to myself or this situation, maybe then they'll say, I too am, like, as they say, co-signing something that we don't believe in or whatever. So that's a beautiful thing that your mom was able to even open up in that manner, because so many parents do not. They do not.
Yeah.
There's a question. It says, how do you deal with the triggers of fight and flight when people show you they aren't a safe space for you? How
I
would you
think the
answer?
first I think the first thing is recognizing that immediately. Like I think that time is out for this my mom called it the ouch I'm sorry, where someone hits you, they say ouch, you say I'm sorry, and then they keep doing it over and over and over again. I think that a lot of times we try to give people the benefit of the doubt. We try to justify their actions because of their position in our life. Well, that's my granny or that's my auntie. But at the end of the day, none of that matters. When we're talking about embracing ourselves, we have to surround ourselves with other people that embrace us as well. So I think number one is identifying that and being okay with that relationship pivoting. And again, it doesn't have to be any love lost, but that relationship can pivot. There's people that I thought were going to be in my life forever.
Yeah.
And for one reason or another, that didn't happen. And so I pivot. Was it uncomfortable? Yes. Did I mourn the loss of that relationship or friendship? Yes. Did I mourn the loss of the future that I created in my mind with these people? Yeah. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, we have to be our number one champion. We can't expect for us to allow other people to mistreat us, to treat us poorly, and then wonder why they continue to do it. And so, to answer that question, I think that setting boundaries is very, very important. And one of the things that I have been very, very kind of stressing since 2021 is the power of no. The power of no, that's not for me. The power of no, I don't want to make that commitment. The power of being able to let your no be as resounding as your yes. And I think that it's a difficult thing to do, but the light at the end of the tunnel is when you create those boundaries. Now what you have done is created your own safe space. What you have done is you are preventing those naysayers, those negative people, the ones that want to hurt you or to damage you. You have created a space that separates you from them so that you can continue to grow.
Yes. So I'm so glad you said that. For me, when I talk about boundaries, it's me honoring myself. You can think I'm saying no to you. That's the way you say it. But I'm saying yes to myself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm honoring me. It's what's best for me. It's
Mm-hmm.
not what's best for you any longer, because I definitely was a people pleaser. I don't know about you, but hello, my name is Lynn. I'm a recovering people pleaser. Like, that
Yeah,
was
same.
me all, all day long. So when I was able to, like, create the boundary and enforce it, people would think like, "What's wrong with you? What's going on?" It was like, it's not what's going on with me. I'm saying yes to me finally. And I
Yeah.
think when it comes to like sharing the feelings, opening up, sharing your thoughts, all those things, I think that's also a way of saying yes to yourself, because it's like, I no longer want to keep this inside. I no longer want to pretend, walk around, be at the job, being like I'm the provider, because again we talked about that. I'm the provider. I'm very stoic. I'm this. I'm strong. I have this shield over me. But most times, the men I know are very soft. That's my husband. That's my nephews. That's my brothers. They are very soft, gentle men.
Mhm.
I know that they can show that to me, but they don't show that to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's almost as if when you show that to the world, it's giving in a lot of men's mind, it's giving permission to treat me any kind of way. And we weren't raised that way. And so I think that there's a level of respect word a little loosely, because I think that it's like a hyper type of sense of respect, but it's like you're gonna respect me. And I think that when we show those softer sides, it 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 almost gives permission for people to treat you any kind of way. And that has a lot to do, again, going back to upbringing, societal pressures, things of that nature.
And then when I hear you say that, how is it that we think it treats people, I mean, it gives people permission to treat us any kind of way? Going back to the men. If anything, to me, when I see a man cry, that is the most powerful thing that a man can ever do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does it make me emotional? Yes, because again, I have been conditioned, as most of us, that men don't cry. So when I see a man crying, I know that man is at his most vulnerable state.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm there, like I'm holding space for him, because I know it's difficult for him to show that emotion. But to me, it's
Right.
the most brave. And I don't see that as being weak. I really
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
But society is like, oh, so you being a punk, you being this, you being that. So now, like you said, I can treat you any kind of way. But that's not what we need to do. Let's talk about solutions. When a man cries, or when a man is showing vulnerability or transparency, what needs to happen?
Number one, just let him get it out. And I have been guilty of this too. Talk to me, explain to me, what are you feeling? A lot of times we don't know. It could be a number of things. It could be the fact that I took the trash out and it just reminded me about how busy I am and how I haven't slept in 2 days. It could be triggered by so many different things. Allow that man to get it out. Allow that person to let go for a moment and release that feeling. It doesn't always have to be, and this is something that I'm teaching myself, it does not always have to be solution based in the moment. We don't have to find the solution in the moment. Going back to what you were saying, even with the way that you raised your children, okay, cry it out, and then let's talk about it. I think so quickly we're what's going on, and I think that it minimizes that person's experience because we go directly into solution mode and not creating space for that vulnerable moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. Well, it probably is because I am a counselor. But I remember growing up and being sent to my room, or my parents didn't want to deal with my feelings and emotions because they didn't know how to deal with theirs. And
Mm-hmm.
so me crying and sharing or whatever, they're like, no, go to your room. And I said I would never do that with my child. So in the beginning of parenting, I did that. But then I stopped because I said, you know what? Hold on. When you're crying, as I said before, when you're crying, there's something going on. So we're going to cry it out. We're going to do those things. And I also give them the example. So if I'm crying or something's going on with me, I sit down and I talk to my children. Hey, mommy, it's not having a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. I'm feeling sad. I feel like I use words that I know they can understand. I'm feeling disappointed. I'm embarrassed. I did this. So if mommy does this or whatever, it's not because of you. It's because of mommy. So now I notice my son is 6 years old. He'll come to me. He'll say, mommy, it's an off day for me. I'm feeling discombobulated, because he'll speak like that. And I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? Well, I'm angry and it's off and I don't like it. Okay, well, feel that way. And then you come back and you tell me what we should do. Because I always give them options. I don't ever want them to grow up and be like, okay, so now, mommy, what should I do? What should I do with that? With him being 6, I know what I pray that he grows up to be the type of man that will share his emotions, that will share his feelings, that will feel safe with his mommy, and also outside of mommy, where okay, my thoughts were validated, my feelings were validated, and so therefore I'm able to share with those people that I can trust.
Mhm, mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think that what you're creating with your son is beautiful.
thank you. I appreciate that. And I know that needs to happen. Again, I'm speaking of a female perspective, but I also know how my brothers were raised. And I
Mhm,
also know how my nephews were raised.
mhm,
And they
mhm.
come back and they share with me, I just wish I could talk to mom. I just wish I could talk to whomever. I just wish I could. And I'm just like, wow, we have really we have done a disservice with these children. And so now again, we are here, men cry in the car simply because of all of the things, right? So
Yeah.
what would you feel like needs to be shared right now on this platform that we have not discussed, that we have not talked about, that we have not been asked by the viewers? What do you feel like needs to be said right now?
To kind of wrap it in a cute little package is your best self, your future self depends on your ability to be uncomfortable now, to disrupt the status quo. Your best self depends on it. There's no way to get there without going through the process. And so I would just encourage everyone. And I don't, and it's different for every person, but sit down with yourself first. Have that internal dialogue with yourself first. How can I be more vulnerable? How can I show up more authentically? And I'm going to tell you, when you begin to have those conversations, you're going to see that your anger is going to decrease because you're predisposing yourself to a more positive mindset. Your connections are going to be more meaningful. You are going to be able to more strongly and positively enforce your boundaries. But it all goes back to the ability to embrace ourselves. If we can't have the conversation with ourselves, how can we embrace ourselves? And if we can't embrace ourselves, how can we expect others to do the same? I think
Mhm.
that we have to realize that the safe space that we wish to create, it starts within us. It's not some place where you can go and find it. It's not hidden behind something. It's truly something that we must create. There is no way around it. There is no shortcut. You have to go through the process. And I think in our culture of wanting everything fast and
Mhm.
wanting everything instantaneously, that
Mhm.
we fail ourselves because we clip our wings before we've even began to fly. We have
Yeah.
negative self-talk that we speak to ourselves on why we can't or won't or shouldn't. And so I think that it comes down to truly understanding what it means to embrace yourself. When I think of embrace, I think of my grandmother's hug, the
Mhm.
hug that said, "Okay, you're safe right now," and I wish somebody would. That
Mhm.
embrace that said, "You don't have to worry. You can be you right here," and it also. I don't know. It was back in those days. It felt like people hugged harder. It
Mhm.
was something that I still remember the way it felt. That it went through my entire body, and
Mhm.
it was an energy. Okay. It was an energy that she was saying, "You are mine. I am yours. I got you." And she was only able to do that for others and me specifically because she had already done that for herself. And
Mhm.
so putting away the facades, removing the masks, that is where we're going to see and be our most vulnerable and our most authentic. And that's truly when we begin to embrace ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I This is so good. I realize I skipped a question, and so it kind of may go back to like what we were talking about in the beginning. It says like, I'm getting ready to be a parent. My father was not there for me. So I really don't know how to be a parent to my son. what advice would you give to me, or what like recommendations would you give to this man, this young man?
So I think it goes back to that saying of becoming the example you wish you had. And I think that that is easier said than done. But
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage this person to go back and look at, okay, all of the things that happened, when your father wasn't around. How did that make you feel? How did that change the way that you interacted with other people? How,
Mm-hmm.
and think about what you might have needed. I know for me, luckily I have an amazing relationship with my dad now, but that wasn't always the case. And so I remember the first time I really learned to shave by was one of my cousins. And the reason why that always stuck in my mind, because I always envisioned that being something that we would have done, together. So I think about the things that you needed and speak to that young child. Speak to that young child and allow that young child in you to speak back to you. And I think that going into it with the mindset of not comparison, we don't have to compare how we parent to our parents. They did the best they could, or couldn't do with what they had or didn't have. But to go into it with the mindset to provide a different experience. And I think a lot of times we get hooked on, the where I want to do better. I want to do better than. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's not so much doing better than, because I was not in that situation to know what better was. But I think considering what you might have missed out on, the things that you would have needed, and speaking to that child, that's what's
Mm-hmm.
going to really help you connect the dots as you begin to welcome your child into the world.
I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly what I would have said, but thank you for sharing that as a male perspective. Like, because I
Yeah.
know even listening to you, you have done some amazing work within yourself. I can tell, but I don't know everything that you've done. Um, so just share just a little bit about like the work that you've done to get you to the place where you are now. Because in my opinion, you seem extremely healthy emotionally. Um, so let us know like some of the work that you did to get to this place. Because I know it was difficult because the work is work and it's necessary.
Yeah.
But what were some of the things that you did to get to this place that you're in right now?
The biggest thing was me isolating myself. It literally took me removing myself. I literally not just isolated myself mentally, I physically moved across the country, so that I could figure out what was going on. So I think the biggest thing is isolation and time. I didn't have pressure on myself to say, okay, Norman, you need to figure this out right now. I gave myself the time to try to figure things out. I tried all different types of things, and kind of stuck with the things that resonated with me. I think also being able to write my feelings down. I have notebooks everywhere. I'm a big journal enthusiast, and so I have journals everywhere, writing those down. But then also partnering with someone who can really help you go to the next level. Whether that's a coach, whether that's a therapist, whether if that's for some people might be a pastor or something like that. But it was important for me to realize that after I had isolated and kind of taken the time to figure out where I wanted to go, I had
Mm-hmm.
to partner with someone who had been there, or at least had the experience to give me the wisdom to move forward. So I think that that makes a big difference, because again, we can't do it all by ourselves, but you do need to allow your time of solitude to quiet the noise, to quiet the voices, and really find out who you are and what it is that you want to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that because again, it's hard to even know where to start. It's hard to know where to begin, like all those things, and then seeing you on the podcast, those that have come on and those who will catch the replay, they can look at you and say, "Oh my God, okay, I didn't know I could start there," or Norman is able to do it. I know I can do it too,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not by myself because so
Mm-hmm.
many men, people in general, but definitely men, feel alone. And so I just thank you for sharing that. I do want to say this though. I want you to tell people where they can find you, who your clients are, what you do, because I forgot to tell you guys, Norman is a life coach. So tell the people like where they can find you, who you work with, and how they can like reach out to you.
So I am the confident lifestyle coach, and what I do is I connect my clients with their superpower, with that thing that's you, that unicorn power. You can reach me at my website. It is under construction, is brand new. Kind of went through some rebranding earlier this month or last month. So it's www.normanliverpooliv.com. Again, that's normanliverpooliv.com. Go to the website, click subscribe, and then you'll begin to get access to my blogs, newsletters, and other resources like that. I specialize in working with people within the LGBTQ plus community who want to connect with their superpower, who want to no longer live a life of shame, but want to step boldly forth in authenticity and confidence. And again, you can grab my book on Amazon. It is called Over the Top Living, Walking in Next Level Confidence every damn day.
Okay, thank you for that. I was trying to put your book in while you were talking. But you can drop it. You can drop it in for those that come back and do the replay
For sure.
for later, so they can have that as well. And I put your website in there. If you want to add any other links in there, just let me know. Okay, Norman. Very last thing. Well, second to last thing. Um, what advice or what if you were speaking to men right now, as you know you are, um, how would you like to show up for them or give permission or give suggestions or advice? Like, what do you want to say to that man right now that's looking or will come back and watch the replay and just say, Dag, Norman, I get that, but it's so hard. Like, I've tried. I want to share my feelings. People don't understand me. My wife doesn't understand me. No female in my life understands me. My guys don't understand me, but I'm screaming. I want somebody to hear me. Like, what would you say to him right now?
The first thing that I would say is recognize that you are enough. Number one, you are enough. But the second thing that I would say, it is hard, but it comes almost down to choosing your hard, right? It's hard to be able to open up and to find the people that create that safe space for you, but it's also very hard not to. So what is it costing you to not show up and to be able to show up authentically? What opportunities are passing you by because you can't speak out and show vulnerability? So I know that it's hard, but we have to choose the hard. And then the second thing that I would say is we need to look at our tribe. If you're saying that no one around you gives you permission or allows you to be, we need to examine our circle. We need to examine the positions in our life, because to be completely surrounded and you can't be yourself with anyone, it indicates to me that there needs to be a review of the people that are in our lives, and we might need to promote and demote certain people, because it could be the person that you would least expect it that would be the one that creates that safe space for you.
I agree. Thank you so much. Norman, thank you so very much for coming on and talking to us. I
You're
appreciate you so
welcome.
much because I know you're an extremely busy person. And the fact that you took time out to have this conversation with me, with us, those that will come on, it means a lot to me. Thank you so
100%.
very much. Thank you so very much. I still want to be able to connect with you for us to
Yes.
do future things, collaborations, because I understand you and I have like the same vision. Um, anything else? I don't want to leave anything off the table. Like anything else we need to say, anything else you need to share before we go, y'all. I already put the website out there. please follow Norman on the website and also Facebook. Any other place you want them to follow you? You have
So
Instagram?
I do, but my
Okay.
Instagram is undergoing rebrand. I've
Okay.
archived everything, and so we're starting a rebrand on there. But definitely connect with me here on Facebook, Norman J. Liverpool the Fourth. Again, my website, normanliverpooliv.com, where you can subscribe, put your email. Let's connect.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time.
Thank
Um,
you.
don't leave when we end because I want to talk to you as well. Y'all,
Okay.
everybody, thank you so much for being here with us for Men Cry in the Car podcast. This is our fourth episode, Embracing Yourself. And thank you so much. Please share this out, subscribe, share with all the men that you know. Share the men with the men that you feel like can benefit from that. Please subscribe so we can get the word out. So this can be a space for you guys. This is you're building your tribe, your community, your support here. You're not by yourself. You are not alone. And I just want you to know that I see you. I hear you. I support you. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.